Hey everybody, how's it going? What I was seeing in the pre-shuffle was that it looks like there's a little bit of a shift that is taking place within your personal life. We're starting off with Temperance. When we have Temperance, usually there is a process that's happening and it requires us to fully participate in the process that is happening, which means that we have to accept sort of whatever the protocol is going to be energetically in order for us to be involved, if this is something that we want to see through. It's a sign of working something out, of figuring something out. Whether it be something that you're like physically doing or it be something that you're feeling and making sense of. I'm seeing Three of Swords come out next, so this could be something mentally, something emotionally. There can be a process of healing that's taking place as well. Transmuting the energy. You can feel like you kind of want to be doing this more quietly, like more privately, or just not exposing this, meaning maybe you're like walking into work and you're kind of feeling this within the energy, but you may not want to like share with your coworkers about what's going on. It can be something that you feel like you're processing a bit more privately. We have Temperance, we have Three of Swords, and we also have the Hermit here. So when we have these energies, it's like I'm thinking about things, I'm kind of feeling into it, I'm going with the flow of my own process here, and you're just allowing this to be your own thing that you're doing, that you're going through right now. The next card that we have coming out is Seven of Swords. I feel like Seven of Swords would be something that would get in the way of you processing this. Because not only are you processing something so the energy can be transmuted, so that means you can take something like pain and turn it into growth or turn it into progress for yourself. You can turn it into understanding. You can transmute it into like raising your consciousness in some way. Letting go, healing. So not only do we have that, but we also have a Hermit there too, which can indicate that there is as you go through this process, there can be epiphanies that you're having. There can be things that you are realizing. There can be puzzle pieces that you are putting into place that's helping a more cohesive understanding of what this means, because it does hold meaning. And Hermit is going to be the part of you that finds those answers and that finds the deeper meaning, so you can understand why this was something that you experienced in the first place. What is the purpose of this? What is the meaning of this? Having Seven of Swords come out, I feel like this would be anything that could derail you from this process. Anything that would have you to stop your processing, or to have you avoid processing or avoid reflecting, being present, looking for answers. Anything where you could be doing to, anything that you could do to maybe like escape from having to deal with this. Because it's this type of thing where no matter where you go, you're gonna always come back to this place. You're always going to return to it. So the only way out is through, and so that's how you have to go through this. But that Seven of Swords can be your shadow coming up and being like, well, maybe we can just go over to that party tonight and not have to deal with it. But this can be something that feels kind of like a pressing matter for you. I'm not saying this is the only thing that you need to be thinking about, but if you have something that's coming through that's not helpful to you processing, or even like an impulse or urge that you have that would impede upon your processing this, or somebody around you, this can be something that is coming up for you. I see it especially being like, you know that you need to reflect on something, you know that you need to sit with this, you know that you need to process this, you know that you have to find answers that are related to this. And Seven of Swords, I feel like it's your shadow being like, let's just do anything else besides this, but then you're gonna have to come back to it anyway, so you might as well just move through it. But this is the type of stuff where it's like the most difficult homework to do, but then you get your degree at the end, so isn't it worth it? Because you want the degree, right? Like, you want to be able to go to the next level of things. You don't want to stay stuck here in this. not in this part. You want to keep going. And this is, you processing now is going to ensure that you can keep going and that you don't just get held back here. So your Seven of Swords, even though it means well, it's that part of you that will keep you held back in this space rather than moving through it. Even though it can temporarily distract you. Yeah, anything other than having to deal with this, I'm seeing the Seven of Swords be attached to the Devil. This is a very... This is the part of our energy that's like very much a rascal in its nature. It's the part of us that like we swear that we want something and really it's just helping us avoid something else, and then we're going back and saying close enough, and then it's like not really what we want. And so this, it's like when you know that you're doing something that's actually the best thing for you to do, where you're properly going to take care of something and move through it and address what needs to be addressed. But when we have that Seven of Swords, and I'm hearing dangerous, when we have the Seven of Swords and we have the Devil there, it can be the ways that we numb to avoid it, the ways that we go back so we don't have to confront what needs to be confronted, the ways that we avoid pain when we know that the only way, it's like you have to like reset the bones in order for them to grow back, right? And when we have Seven of Swords and we have the Devil, it's like keeping things suspended so that doesn't happen. And this can be a really like impulsive urge within you that you feel with Seven of Swords and the Devil that can really like bury this process so you're not going through it and tell you it's fine, but then you don't feel good because it's not really taking care of anything, but it can sort of pose as taking care of it. It's like, for example, right? Like you're going through something and you need to process it emotionally, and Seven of Swords and the Devil, just an example, can be like, let's just drink instead. And it's like, it may make you feel better initially, but it's not actually solving the problem. It's just covering up the symptoms that you're feeling. So whatever this is, and this can even be like, rather than having to address something like, let's say like something difficult you have to address with another person, like keeping your mouth shut and not addressing it, or being like, it's fine, I can just deal with it, or like put it off, or like maybe I'll just do it tomorrow. It's these types of things that just elongate, just prolong this process and aren't taking care of it. And there's a difference between needing to take a break to regroup and come back versus doing something that's actually just going to cover up the symptoms of what this is and not do anything to help it. Because when we rest, when we need to take a break to regroup, it's to help you recharge so you have the strength to go back into a situation and deal with it. When we are doing something that's connected with Seven of Swords and the Devil, like I'm just using drinking as an example, okay? If you're doing something like that, it's going to weaken your energy, it's going to deplete you, and it's going to make it even harder to deal with this. So that's not self-care, it's not resting. I guess it depends on the intention behind it, okay? But for the most part, it's like, I think that there's a difference between like having a drink and it being like a celebration and it being a happy thing versus... Is this like controversial territory that I'm going in? Versus doing something to escape from something, whatever it may be. Like I'm just using drinking as an example, but it can really be anything at all. So whatever this is, you can have this impulse with the Seven of Swords and the Devil coming up and saying, let's do this instead of that. Let's do this easy thing instead of this difficult thing over here. Let's do anything other than focus on it. But you know, with Temperance and Hermit, that this is what you're supposed to be focusing on, and that this is the best thing for you. When you're totally tuned in and checked in and you're looking at this situation, you know that you need to get on it now, you know that you need to deal with it now, and you know that the only way that this energy is going to be integrated is if you do exactly that. But yeah, you can have your shadow coming up and attempting to dissuade you from dealing with this, but this is This is also the time when it can feel most difficult to work with those parts of yourself because they're very empowered. When you're dealing with something difficult, your shadow is very empowered because it has the power to try to pull you out of this, to take you out of it so you don't have to deal with it. But when you sit with the energy, you know that that's not the best thing for you. And so you being present and you being aware is how you do not let this energy overpower you. But it can be really, really difficult to work with. Because this is the most intense aspects of the ego that are like anything other than pain. Let's avoid it at all costs, actually. Okay. So what is this connected with? It looks like it has to do with a serious relationship, living situation, or a serious commitment of some sort within your life. When I'm seeing 4 of Pentacles and I'm seeing 3 of Swords, it feels like squeezing something tighter and tighter, but it's like a blade that's being squeezed. And you can be like, I don't want to let it go. And it's like really cutting into you here. Yeah, I'm seeing Lovers come out. It looks like this has to do with a relationship that you have that you can really be looking for some deeper answers. Things are not going right is what I'm seeing with 3 of Swords looming above 4 of Wands. 4 of Wands is like when things are going right and when it feels like everything is functioning properly and like everything, the vehicle of your relationship is working like a well-oiled machine. But having 3 of Swords above it feels like this impending thing. It's like no matter where you go, you can't get out from underneath the cloud of this. And so it just keeps casting a shadow on the relationship. I do get the sense that this is in the process of being addressed, but it's still not fully been addressed. And you cannot want to let go of it either. Having that 4 of Pentacles there, you can be working with a part of you that doesn't like to change, that doesn't like to move, that doesn't like to adapt, that doesn't like to let go. This is a very fixed energy that we're seeing here with this, which I find to be interesting because all around this, we have mutable energy, which is about actually like problem solving and adapting that we would be doing, transitioning that we would be doing, but maybe that also embracing that is going to be helpful. There's a big seasonal shift that's happening. It feels like trying to keep it with all your might with that 4 of Pentacles, trying to keep something, and the season is going to change regardless. Like, and how do you even do something like that? You know, like if you just as your human self were trying to impede upon the process of a seasonal shift, where do you even grip that to make it not happen? It's like something intangible. So how do you stop that? And it feels like something like that here, where you may be trying to make something happen where the energy is naturally going in a different direction, but it may be a painful direction with the 3 of Swords. It may be something where you're like, I'm not ready for this, or I don't want this, or I'm having a really hard time with this, or I just like don't want to accept it, or this isn't what I want, or I'm like deeply unhappy with this. It's like all of the things that feel painful, and even all of the old wounding that this can bring up too within the dynamic with this person. Working with yourself, trying to stretch, trying to be more flexible here. That 4 of Pentacles feels like something where you have to, like, you know when something gets stuck and you have to spray, what is it that you spray on it? WD-40. It's like that, but energetically, that you have to put on something that's like not moving at all energetically. It's like extremely rusted and stagnant, Having temperance there is about getting things moving where they're not moving. But if you were to get things moving, it feels like it exposes something that may be really difficult to confront, because it challenges something important to you. It challenges something big. It challenges something foundational within your life. Because Four of Wands is something that is a big deal relatively within your life right now. So it's like all of the energy of the ego working against this process, because the ego is going to want to shut down. It's going to want to avoid having to deal with the pain of the Three of Swords. It's not going to want to have to confront things with you and this person, because then you don't know what's going to happen and what that's going to mean. And so it's very tempting for your shadow. As I said before, this is a situation that can really empower your shadow and say, let's just not. Let's do anything but. Yet you're stuck with the feeling like this is the best thing for you to be doing, is to be working on this. When we have Seven of Swords and we have the Devil, this can be some really deep fear that we're having difficulty addressing. It can be some really deep codependency that we're having a difficult time addressing. It can be something very heavily attached to materialism that we can be having a hard time addressing. This is something where there's going to need to be a spiritual and energetic solution, not a worldly one. But the Devil will be that like worldly solution, if you want to call it that. But then there's this deeper component that's missing. And Seven of Swords is that part of us that's like, it's close enough, that's fine. But if we bring awareness to it, we can see that that's not actually the case, that that's a lie. But it can be very easy to believe, right? Like, ignorance is bliss, so-called. But I'm seeing you get to a point where there's an awareness of it, so it feels like it can't really go back to sleep here. There's something having to do, I'm seeing Six of Pentacles on the bottom of the deck. There can be something having to do with compatibility. There can be something having to do with reciprocity. There can be something having to do with values, something having to do with exchanges between you and this person. Is there equality? Is there balance? Is there fairness? Is there fulfillment? Is there sustainability? Are you enjoying the interaction? Are you enjoying the process? I'm seeing something that you feel very, very, very attached to with Temperance, the Lovers, and the Devil. The Devil is this part of you that doesn't trust the energy, and we want to force our will on a situation even though the energy is telling us something else. And it can be because we're attached, because we're scared to let go. These situations are very, very triggering when we're working through them. Because if your access point is very much connected and perceiving in 3D and not seeing above this, it can be very difficult to see outside of this situation and get some perspective. And you can feel all of the parts of your ego and all of the parts of you that are connected with fear saying, I am absolutely not letting this go. I don't want things to change, even though it's something ironic because it's like the situation doesn't feel good, but you can still be like keeping it the same. But then you're in a situation that doesn't feel good. It's like there's a wound that needs to be addressed, and like you don't want to have to go to the doctors, so you just keep walking on it, and it's getting worse and worse and worse because it's not being addressed and it needs to be dealt with. And like the actual catalyst is not being addressed. The Devil and Seven of Swords can be symptoms, but it's not going to get to the catalyst. And so it's something that is kind of going to collapse on itself from the inside out, and it feels again like this, like not wanting to deal, not wanting to address. So who do we have here? Sagittarius, Virgo, Capricorn. I'm hearing Scorpio. I'm seeing Gemini, and the last card that we have out is Aquarius. Seeing the devil energy be above the star, so I do feel like this is a big battle that's happening within you right now, that's playing out in this situation, and I feel like this is actually kind of existential, the way that it's coming through. Like, there's something about your energy that is rising within, and it's going to like push out the other stuff. It kind of feels like an emerging that's going to be happening within the energy, but it feels like this is going to be the biggest magic trick of energy you've ever done. It's like when the magician is locked inside of the box and you think it's like impossible for them to get out, and the devil is like this box that you're being kept in with all of the locks there, and the star is going to be that part of you that actually finds a way to break out of that, but has to go through all of this stuff in order to do that. And until that happens, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb is the way that it feels. And it's like the water levels are getting higher and higher and higher inside. What's going to happen here? And I think just the forces that you're working with of like, don't deal with it. You're not going to be able to get out of this anyway. Like, you might as well just like submit to it, and you're going to die in that box, versus emerging out of this. But it can be the most difficult things to do. The thing about this is that if you were not to address this, what you would feel like is that you are cutting yourself off from the potential to experience true harmony and stability in the way that you want to in functional relationships. And that this has to be addressed in order for that to happen. So all that happens by avoiding dealing with this is that it doesn't allow you to experience the true Four of Wands that you want to experience. That true stability, that true harmony, that true safety, that true functionality even. I do get the sense that there is an awareness. Having Temperance above Four of Pentacles, I see this as you working with the parts of yourself that don't like to give up control, that don't like to surrender, that don't like to be flexible, that have an agenda and don't want to negotiate on that, even when the energy is telling you something else. How we can be using our willpower to fight against the energy, and even to fight against our intuition, because we think this is how I'm going to get what I want, when that's not actually the case. Like, your intuition isn't going to be like, go do this thing over there, but then you're not going to be happy with it. It's like your intuition is telling you actually how to get what you want, but you, in this situation, you may not fully be in that place of having this realization that this is not how that happens. And so and I'm seeing you be working on this with yourself, but until you get to that point of realizing it, of course we're going to hold on. If you think that the worst thing for you to do is to let go here, of course you're going to be holding on until you realize that the key is actually letting go. But yeah, you can feel like you're dangling over the cliff, and even though there's going to be something to catch you, that's actually the way forward, you can very much be looking at that and saying, I don't want to drop here. I don't want to have to deal with that. Because this is something that can feel disturbing. Like, Four of Wands is the thing that we want to be able to depend on and rely on, and we want to have that safety net there. And when there's an issue with that, having to address it, it can feel like our lives are falling apart. Sometimes on a greater scale, sometimes on a smaller scale, it's something that's disturbing the peace, but the peace is already disturbed. And you can say, like, if I look under the rug, everything's going to be exposed, but it's already all under there anyway. You're just looking at it and doing something about it. But the ego can feel very threatened about this, and so your shadow can be like, let's just not look under the rug. Let's pretend that it's not there. And you can pretend, but then it's like it really starts piling up here. And you can be deep in thought about your relationships in general, maybe even specifically this relationship that you have. I'm looking at Hermit and I'm looking at the Lovers, which is in the very center of this. And you can be wanting to understand it better. What's going on with you and this person? What's happening? And I think that this just feels like a really challenging thing to be addressing because it's painful, and because your shadow can be like, you do not have the capacity to deal with this, you don't have the threshold to deal with this, and it keeps you here, when that's not the case. And you have to work with that part of yourself. You have to empower yourself moving through this. You have to empower your thoughts. You have to empower your mind. You have to see where there's this part of you that is so convinced that this is not something that you can do, that this is not something you can address, that this is not something that you can get out of, that this is just your story, and it doesn't have to be. And you can feel as well like you would be agreeing to a life path that you don't even want. Having the Devil and having the Star in the last row of the reading feels like you are actually in touch with what your ideal would be. And that is something that's possible, but you're going to have to confront this entire thing at the root in order to connect and touch base with that. Seeing King of Pentacles on the bottom of the deck, this is something that can like disrupt your self-image and disrupt your identity in some type of way. And it can also be a big concern that's connected with your investments. What you've been spending your time doing and where much of your energy has been dedicated. Sagittarius, Virgo, Capricorn. I keep hearing Scorpio again. I'm also looking at Gemini and Aquarius. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everyone for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sending everybody love, and I hope to catch you guys next time.